Wealth with the Walkers podcast. We are so excited. We are launching season 2 of Wealth with the Walkers. If you haven't checked out season 1, this is your little coy to go out, check out the episodes. So much rich content, amazing interviews, and we're super excited for this next season.
Thank y'all so much for rocking with us. Thank you all so much for hearing our story, our journey, and just being alongside with us as we do life. Through our marriage and through our finances and what we've been able to accomplish. We appreciate y'all for tuning in.
So we're excited because since we recorded the last season, so much has happened.
So much has happened.
Literally a ton. So we're super excited to, and just to give context of dates, we recorded the last season in like October of 2025. And so now it's summer of 2026. And we are super excited to give like life updates, what's been happening.
Yeah, so today we really want to focus on being able to give you all just an update in terms of not just financial tools, but sometimes when you're trying to build wealth in your life, it could be wealth in your family, wealth in your career, wealth in your personal advancement of your own goals and some things that you're just needing to accomplish in your life. And so today we really want to talk about wealth when it comes to being able to build a family. We've been in a journey of just wanting to become parents for about, I would say about 3 years now.
And we, like anybody, when you like start family planning, you never think that you're going to have issues with having kids. And we just got, I feel like, obstacle after obstacle in the process of us trying for our fertility journey. And it also allowed, though, the Lord to come in and bring up some desires and things that He has shown us up until this point during the process. So we're going to share all of that of like this journey up to that.
So we've been trying, like Lauren said, for a couple of years now in the process of becoming parents. And we endured a lot of just wall after wall. And when we first started planning to become parents, we were believing God. We were fasting. We were doing all the things that we knew how on our spiritual checklist. And then one day I was just like, all right, now, this is good. This is real spiritual, but some ain't right. And so I then decided, let's just start looking for doctors to be able to do checkups to see either something wrong with me or is it possibly something wrong with you. And initially I got a lot of pushback from you because she has a really strong gift of faith. And she's like, God's going to do it.
Yeah.
God's going to bring us through. We just need to keep on trusting and believing God. And I'm like, yeah, trust is good, but faith without works, we need to try to dig into, it's been a couple months, almost a year now. Let's go see someone. So finally we agreed to go see someone. And I remember the very first day that we went into, was it like an OBGYN appointment? And they did an ultrasound. Lauren had never gotten an ultrasound. And so they were like, we're just going to check your ovaries, your fallopian tubes, as well as your uterus. And so when the nurse at the time was looking at Lauren and she was doing the ultrasound, she saw what she said to be was fibroids. And Lauren was like, well, what in the world is fibroids?
And I'll share more about what she said. It was actually very traumatic. So I go into this appointment, and up until this point, we had been trying for close to a year and a half, and we had had no success. And he had all of his stuff checked out. Sperm count was good. They were swimming. Everything was good on his side. So I'm like, okay, I'm ovulating every month because I was testing and I was tracking every single month. And everything, health-wise was looking okay, besides my iron. And so I was taking supplements for iron. Everything, my levels had increased. They told me I'm not anemic anymore. I'm like, great, we're good. So I go to the doctor appointment, and this was probably the worst experience that I've had with the doctor. So the lady's doing the ultrasound, and she's like, oh my gosh. Oh my. She said it like 4 times.
Yes.
And at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? So this lady goes on with the appointment and she's basically giving me the news that she found fibroids. And at the time, she's like, oh my gosh, I counted like 6 to 8 fibroids. And I didn't even know what a fibroid is. And so she begins to explain that it is basically tissue that's overgrown in your uterus that produces a non-benign cancerous tumor. And so I'm like, holy crap, I have 6 tumors in my uterus area. And I didn't even know about this until this appointment. And so then she begins to ask me questions about like, were your periods heavy? And they were extremely heavy. They said, did you have pain? I didn't have any pain in my periods. And then they asked me some more questions, different things on my cycle, if I was ovulating, etc. So everything was normal besides the flow of my menstrual cycle. And so I was like, okay, this is crazy. This is weird. That the lady goes on to tell me that she has fibroids and she had to get her fibroids removed in her uterus removed via a hysterectomy. And so I'm here because this is a fertility doctor and we're going to see someone about getting pregnant. And you tell me that the same thing happened to you and you had to get a hysterectomy. So I was completely
Super discouraged.
And she kind of just, one, she was a nurse. She wasn't even a doctor. So she should have never even told me the suggestion or whatever. But yeah, I just left that appointment and I was just super sad. And so that kind of began the journey of like, oh, wow, there's something wrong in my body. This is probably what's stopping it. I then went to change doctors
For a second opinion.
And this doctor then said, oh, no, you don't have 6 fibroids, but you have 1. And they're like a compromise of a bunch of fibroids
Like
together.
cluster.
A cluster of fibroids. And it was just sitting on top of my uterus. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is a little better than before. And this lady, she'd been recommended being able to do it. Basically, it's called laparoscopically, which basically means she would just take a tool inside and cut like through an incision and just remove the fibroids that way. And so that was like the most minimally invasive way and option that we had heard up to this point. So the lady prior to that, they recommended me doing basically a myomectomy where they cut like a C-section form, taking it out. This one was like, oh, we can do it laparoscopically. We just take a tool. It's like outpatient. You'll be in, back at home 30 to 45 minutes later, etc. So I'm like, okay, this is a lot. So I plan to get the surgery done with the second doctor. And literally, no lie, day before the surgery, she calls me and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know there's a big mistake that's been made for whatever reason. Like, I don't know why they have you down for a laparoscopic surgery. You cannot do a laparoscopic surgery. You're going to have to do like a regular myomectomy. And now, at first, I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But the recovery for a myomectomy is way different. This is like getting a C-section, like a woman getting a C-section when they have a baby. Similar procedure. They cut at the bottom of the stomach, but the recovery takes 3 weeks to a month. You can't just like show up and then tell your employer whatever. So I was working at the time. I was like, there's no way I could take a month off of work and I haven't even told anyone. I haven't filed for a disability, none of that type of stuff. So I was like, one, this is crazy. And the lady has little to no empathy towards it. Like she just kind of like dismissed that she made this huge mistake and forgot to tell me or whatever. And so I was like, I don't think I trust that doctor to do this procedure. Like this
cut me open.
Right. I'm like, she may forget something else while she's doing the procedure. So this was crazy. And I was like, you know what? No, we're just going to wait and we're going to trust God. And so I then started going the holistic route. So I was taking tons of herbs, probably like 10 to 15 pills a day, looking up all of this stuff. I went to go see a natural doctor and I did everything you could think about. I tried acupuncture. I tried functional medicine. I tried muscle testing, everything possible to like get to the root of this. And ultimately, like 8 months later,
you followed up and went to another doctor because
Yes.
you were still having some heavy bleeding, as well as you were just not seeing any change.
Yeah.
So when we went to another doctor, I mean, this guy was incredible.
And I will say, I want to share the dream. So the night before we went to the doctor, I had a dream. And in the dream, and I have a lot of like prophetic dreams, but in this dream specifically, I was on a plane and there was a doctor who was driving the plane. And in the plane ride, he landed the plane early. And then he was able to, like, there was some type of storm in the plane, and he was able to successfully evacuate everybody on the plane, and it was like a really big thing and everybody's like celebrating him. And he brings up the analogy of like, it's like you're flying a plane. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, this is the person that's supposed to do this surgery. And this is the doctor that I'm supposed to work with.
And then I think it's so important to advocate for yourself and to not just go with any medical professional, but it's important to be able to do your research, to be able to get the right doctor that is going to be able to be sensitive to your needs, as well as you feel very comfortable, but sure that this is the right person to be able to help me through our fertility journey.
Yeah.
Because if you feel a little doubt or uncomfortability in making the decision for a surgery that's invasive, I say just cancel it immediately because sure enough, that's your spirit saying, wrong person or wrong timing. So it's very important to advocate for yourself. And I'm so glad that we process a lot of the decisions and we have a little time, even though we were eager to become parents and go on the journey. Um, we made sure that we had the right person at the right time and when it felt right
Yeah.
to be able to have that surgery. And so we scheduled a date with the doctor and he scheduled a date like 6 months later.
This specific, so there are types of myomectomies, and there's a kind of myomectomy. So he did the ultrasounds, and the biggest thing differently with this doctor and all the other, he said, hey, I want to make sure before we do this surgery that we know exactly where your fibroids are, because when you take like a tool, a laparoscopic tool with a camera on it, and you put it in, it's kind of hard to really see where things are inside because there's so many organs all in that area. And so he said, I want you to get an actual x-ray. He's like, the x-ray will tell me exactly where it is. And so we'll have like the best plan when we do the actual surgery. So I went to go do the x-ray. And when he did the x-ray, this was like, we could actually see on paper that I didn't have one big fibroid. I didn't have 6 fibroids, but I had 2 fibroids. One was pretty big. It was probably the size of like a small softball, and it was sitting at the top of my uterus. And one was on the right side, and it was kind of small, but it was inside the cavity of my uterus. And so that was like really good because I could see the imaging and we could actually look at it together. And he told me a plan of like, this is how we're going to go in. This is what we're going to do, etc. So we had the date set about 6 months out. And prior to that, I had to like get on certain supplements of iron, etc., to make sure that my blood was good and enough for the actual surgery. So it was time for the surgery, and that was in December of 2025. And he basically was one of the only doctors in the area who does a robotic myomectomy. So instead of doing like the C-section cut, which they recommended before, they could do it in 4 really tiny incisions, which eventually disappear on your stomach. They do 2 on top of your belly button, and they do 2 under your belly button. And they basically go in with this tiny little tool, and he has like a robot machine, and he's literally taking out piece by piece the fibroid.
And so when we actually go into the surgery, Lauren, she gets, all the things that she needs in order to get to the surgery. And before she was under anesthesia, we pray, all that good stuff. And they said that in case that you have to remove any of the organs, like your appendix, I'd have to be the one to sign for it. That was a lot of pressure to be able to sign for it. But the surgery was supposed to be like an outpatient surgery, and you were supposed to go home the same day. And it was only supposed to take about 4 hours roughly for the type of placement of your fibroids, and it ended up taking over 8 hours. talk about being stressed the entire time. And then they came out to say she's going to need her appendix removed because it was a little thick. And there's some other things going on that they just wanted to remove it just in case. I had to sign off on that. And so it was very stressful being in the waiting room and just having to see you have to go through all of that.
Yeah. And during the reason that it took so long was he said that once they cut into the bigger fibroid, most tissue on fibroids are like that hard tissue, but for whatever reason, mine was soft tissue. And so he said it like ballooned. And so it was like so hard to see like where's your uterus? Where is the fibroid? Where is the tissue? Like all of that. And so he had to go really slow. And then in the middle of all of this, he said it was super bloody and I lost so much blood. I had to get blood from a blood bank.
2 blood transfusions.
Yeah, I think 2 pints as well of blood that they had to take from like a random person and give it. They took some blood out, so I lost a lot of blood. They took it out, they cleaned it, put it back in me, and then that still wasn't enough, so they had to get some from a blood bank. But yeah, I woke up and I didn't know any of this was happening. So I wake up from anesthesia. They have you in like this waiting room. And I told the doctor, I was like, wow, that was quick. And the doctor looked at me and said, no, it wasn't. And I was like, what happened?
Before she woke up, he actually came out in the waiting room and said that her body has been through so much pain. She's going to take her a while to heal. And he showed me the pictures of what the fibroid looked like. And I hadn't even seen her yet. And this was just crazy. And I'm been in a waiting room for almost 9 hours going on. And he shows me this picture of her, basically of the 2 fibroids before and afterwards. And I had to put the uterus back together. And he came out with blood all over his shoes and all over him. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. But I just thank the Lord that he did me through the surgery. And he was a really, really good doctor. And I think during this journey of becoming parents, it has been one of the most difficult seasons of our lives. It has been one of the most hard seasons to see you have to endure this process and the journey to become a mother, as well as me to become a father. And I think one of the things that have kept us is our faith in the Lord and believing that his promise. We've had so many dreams about our children. We've had so many dreams about becoming parents. And I think one of the things that have really kept us is prayer. I think we got so much closer during this time
Yeah.
uh, of going through the surgery, having to rely on each other in a way that we never relied on each other before, and trusting the Lord and trusting each other and building ourselves up. When she was low in faith, I had enough faith to get us through. And when I was low in faith, she had enough faith to get us through. And so I really felt like the Lord kept us through this season. And I'm going to be honest, it was very difficult in the initial beginning of us just kind of knowing that you have fibroids for me, because I wanted children earlier. And so I was like, had this, we could have been ahead of this if we've gotten to it closer, if we started our becoming parents a little bit sooner. And so that was hard for me. And I had to deal with that in my heart because I just felt like no one listened to me because we got counsel. And our leaders at the time were like, you should really wait to have kids. And some of the people around us were like, you need to wait to have kids. And I was just like, I want to start having kids. And so there was a conflict and a little bit of friction initially around becoming, one in our decision making with having kids. And so I had to go on the journey of forgiveness for myself as well as for Lauren, and being able to say, regardless of like when we were supposed to have children, the Lord knew in the right timing, as well as honestly forgive her. Or maybe she didn't listen, but it's okay. I forgive her. And that whenever we become children, the Lord will be able to get his glory out of our story.
Yeah. And I think my perspective of it, we did have a ton of counsel that was like, wait, like you should wait to have kids, enjoy your marriage, like have a foundation. I'd also feel like there was a level of where we weren't ready to have kids yet. We were very like big in building and stuff like that. In that time, we traveled. I mean, we've been to 23 countries now. A lot of that probably wouldn't have happened with kids. So I think, the reasoning behind waiting, and it was like a 1 year difference of like our perspective. Like he wanted to have kids, I think at like,
26, 27.
well, how many from marriage? 2, 3
Like
years?
2 to 3 years.
Yeah. So he wanted to have kids at like the 2.5 year mark. I want to have kids at like the 3.5 year mark. So we ended up waiting. And also we were in between huge transition where we moved from Memphis to Nashville area. There were a lot of factors that contributed to why I felt like we should wait to have kids. And I didn't think the time of like when I wanted kids versus when he wanted kids was that big of a difference. And so I was like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I will say for couples who are in the journey of becoming parents, seek the Lord on when you're supposed to be parents. Counsel is great, but their counsel wisdom does not trump God's decision and what He's telling you to do. Not to over spiritualize it, but it's important to get counsel, but counsel cannot make decisions because the Lord's timing is perfect.
Yeah.
So I was saying for any couple who's believing the Lord for children, as you agree with one, like let the Lord lead and guide you guys to be able to make the best choice of when you're supposed to be parents or when you're supposed to try to become parents because it's going to be a journey, a beautiful one that the Lord's going to take you on.
Yeah. And I think, too, I have a perspective with anything. If the Lord wants something to happen, He's going to let it happen, regardless
Yeah.
if you're using protection, regardless if you are doing all the things so that it doesn't happen. It's like He wants a child here. Every child, I feel like, has a specific date and time that they're supposed to be on this earth. And it's like He's
Yes.
going to trump whatever plan that we have, anyways, if He wants something here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyways,
And I think that the Lord literally was taking us, although I went through that sort of season of, I felt like, oh, we should have started earlier. The Lord literally had his hand upon the process and the timing of it. Because the doctor was like, fibroids don't just grow in 1 year or 2 years. They start at least 5 years out. And so it's a gradual process of fibroids just growing in your body. So it takes a while. And this whole story of us becoming parents led us to our decision on wanting to be parents because we know God has called us to be parents to our foster care journey. And we want to share with you guys our family update in terms of us becoming foster care parents.
So when the surgery happened, they open your uterus and they take the fibroid out, and then they have to put your uterus back together.
Yeah.
They just sew it back together. And so there is a big chance of them accidentally sewing your uterus and your cavity of your uterus.
Uterine.
Yeah, your uterine, showing your uterine and your uterine lining back together to the point where like sperm or anything can't come back up. Like they've shut it kind of closed. And so that was like a really big risk of the surgery. Also, there's a risk that this doesn't fix it and that, you take the fibroids out and that's really not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, okay, we're just going to trust the Lord. So after the actual surgery, I went back post-op like maybe a month and they did an ultrasound and he was like, I really want to check if I can stick a catheter all the way up or if it gets stuck. And then we kind of know that we kind of sewed wrong and there's kind of nothing we can really do besides try to do the surgery. To open it back up again.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, just praying. And it successfully went all the way back up. And so we were like, thank you, Jesus. Okay, everything is good down there. It's healing properly. He told us that we can start trying again in the month of March of 2026. And so we were like, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We can start like trying again and try building our family, etc. And so during that time, though, we had also been praying and kind of just sensing that the Lord was doing the else in a different area of like family planning. And yeah, we never win, but I think we felt a green light from the Lord during the same time of like going into the surgery, etc. Yeah.
And you started having dreams about children. You had a dream about a little girl that didn't look anything like us.
Yeah, I had a dream that it's crazy how it happened. But I had a dream that I was at our church and I was helping with like the children's ministry, and there was a little girl there. And the little girl, people were coming to like hold her, and she was just crying. And like literally, she didn't stop crying unless she was with me. And I was holding her, whatever. She stops crying. And I said in the dream to one of my friends who works at the church, and I said in the dream, I said, if her mom and dad don't want her, me and Benny will take her. And this little girl looked like she was mixed with something. She looked like she was like white or black, or white and Hispanic. But I knew she wasn't black. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I woke up, I told Benny the dream. I was like, I don't know when this is for. I had that
Yeah.
dream early 2025. So we just kind of prayed about it. And then I feel like I was really the one that was like, I think we should really think about foster care or adoption or something. Like, I think we
Yeah.
really should, talk about it. Like, he has a story of, and he was adopted when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in another video. And he'll
Yes.
share his story more. But I was like, this is something that we knew before we got married, this is probably going to be something that our marriage was about, was foster care, adoption. It's one of the two, or both.
Yeah. And I felt like when I was praying one time about should we get into like the foster care or adoption thing, I felt like the Lord was like, you know, if you allow for me to give you a child, like if you allow for me to make you guys parents through fostering or adoption, like it will be first fruits. And like the Lord would be able to, give us a child biologically, but also us being able to become foster parents or adoptive parents would allow for us to be able to receive them first, for that the Lord can be able to continue our journey through becoming parents and give us our own.
Absolutely. So in the next video, we're going to talk about our foster care journey. I think for you. So in the next video, we're going to talk more about our foster care journey, what led us to really do it, and what it looked like, what you had to do. It was a ton of stuff we had to do before we became foster parents. And yeah, hopefully a lot of people are inspired to also take up that cross and become foster parents through it. So
And it's been an
excited to share
amazing
that.
process, and so excited to share that.
Yeah.
Before we end, I want to ask you, for the wife who is dealing with infertility, or someone who just found out, this is the problem, what did you do practically to help you not give up, like to keep the faith?
I think one of the biggest things I did is I rallied women who are also waiting. We started last year, I pulled together some women. I was like, look, I'm struggling. I really that the Lord will give me natural children, but this sucks. This diagnosis sucks. I'm tired of like going around this mountain, and you're going around it too. Let's pray together. Let's share together our journey, and let's, not a public thing. It's just us praying in the mornings, but it really has helped to like keep our eye on the prize in a sense and really ignite faith. We'll get on there sometimes and be like, I'm weary today, and we'll pray the weariness away, and it'll help us get like that new endurance. Really bringing other people. There's so many people, the more that we share, and I'm like a little bit vulnerable, I realize there's a lot of people in the same season of waiting for children. So I've just been honest with people around me. I'm like, oh my gosh, and we'll share stories, and we'll share things that have helped us and things that haven't helped us and doctors that helped us. We've gone fast for our kids together. We pray and we war in the spirit. We've called our husbands to go on fast together. So really having a community of women who are in the same season really has helped. And then allowing your friends who also have kids to
Yeah.
be a part of those special moments.
Good.
I was in one of my really close friends. She allowed me to be at the birth of her child. And it was just so special because some people could be like ashamed or feel like that. I don't want her to feel like, no, like include me. I want to learn. I want to
Yeah.
be around your kids. I want to love on your kids and learn how to be a good mom before I'm able to be that for my own biological kids. So those two are really special. Just people not forgetting about you because you don't have kids yet.
Yeah.
And then also like being around people who are in the same season. It's very
Yeah.
helpful.
I'm so that we have friends that, engage us
Yeah.
with their children and it's
Yeah.
like come around because, the word says like hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Yeah.
And we were sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were sick and we were so disappointed because
Crazy.
we're just been in a journey and it's hard and it seems like you're just all alone and there's no other people that are dealing with what we're dealing with and we're just contemplating like all these different thoughts of how could God do this, and he's given someone who's not even, married children. But that each person, each couple has a cross that they have to bear.
Yeah.
And this is one of ours, and the Lord is going to bring us through.
Yeah.
So we're so thankful that we had friends and people to be able to just allow for us to keep hope alive
Yeah.
and allow for us to see the promises of the Lord in their lives for us to continue to believe that he's going to fulfill ours.
Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
special.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with another episode of Wealth with the Walkers. Today's episode, we talked a little bit about health and
Yeah.
wealth, because there's a lot of wealth and health. And so I hope that this, what God is about to do through us, helped.
Yeah. And I just want to say to someone who's watching and you're believing the Lord for maybe it's not a child, you're believing the Lord for something else. Don't give up. Surround yourself around people who are believing for the same thing or maybe something different and continue to believe that God's going to fulfill what he's already spoken to your life. And I just wanted to say we're praying for you and thank y'all so much for being able to join in with us today. See y'all later.